Good afternoon, everybody. Hope everybody can hear my voice and see the screen. Okay. So, Partha just informed me that he will not be able to take this session. So, I'll be taking the static GK session today, where we'll be quickly running through a number of important quotes made by important people, which are very commonly asked in exams, and certain interesting facts about Indian arts and cultures. And it's very sad that today, when I was going to talk about Indian arts and cultures, the news has just come in that the voice of the nation, Miss Lata Mangeshkar, is no more. I hope everybody is able to hear my voice properly. Somebody was having issues with my voice. I hope my voice is clearly audible. Okay. So, as I was saying, one of the very saddest news that we have received, although it was not very unexpected because she was suffering from COVID apparently for the past 28 days, 4 weeks. So, you can expect a lot of questions across examinations where Latadi's life and achievements, you can expect a question or two. So if I quickly run through some of these achievements, and if you want, you can quickly make notes of these. I just quickly assembled a few factoids which are very important. Of course, in the coming days, there will be a lot of news coverage, there will be a lot of articles, there will be a lot of discussions about this. But some important facts from the life of this great songstress. I'll just give you a few facts, you can note them down, and then we can start with the questions for the day. So, Lata Mangeshkar was born in 1929, to be precise, 28th of September 1929. And she was born in the state of Madhya Pradesh. Now, some of you who might have visited Goa might have seen there's a Mangeshi temple there, which apparently is the family temple for the Mangeshkar family. But the place, the city where she was, the state where she was actually born is Madhya Pradesh. The break for Lata Mangeshkar was in the 1949 movie Mahal, in which she sang the famous song Aayega Aane Wala. Right, it's a very famous song from the movie Mahal. So the movie Mahal in 1949 had the song Aayega Aane Wala, and this was supposedly the song which gave the break to Lata Mangeshkar in the year 1949. The first Filmfare Award. Now, the Filmfare Award basically given to various categories in movies. So, the first Filmfare Award was won by Lata Mangeshkar in 1958, and this was for the song Aja Re Pardesi from the movie Madhumati. So, the first Filmfare Award won by Lata Mangeshkar was in the year 1958 for the movie Madhumati, and the song was Aja Re Pardesi. The first National Film Award, the first National Film Award was won by Lata Mangeshkar in the year 1973. The song was Biti Na Bitaye from the movie Parichay. So the first Filmfare Award is 1958, Aja Re Pardesi from the movie Madhumati. The first National Film Award was in the year 1973 for the movie Parichay, and the song was Biti Na Bitaye. Of course, one of the most famous patriotic songs which Lata Mangeshkar is famous for, a song supposedly for which even the Prime Minister of that time cried, was the song which he sang after the Indochina War of 1963, which was "E Mere Watan Ke Logo." "E Mere Watan Ke Logo," a very patriotic song which almost became an anthem which he is associated with, was sung by her after the Indochina War of 1963. She was awarded the Padma Vibhushan, the second highest civilian award, in 1999. The second highest civilian award in India, the Padma Vibhushan, was awarded to Lata Mangeshkar in the year 1999. And the highest civilian award, the Bharat Ratna, was conferred upon Lata Mangeshkar in the year 2001. Lata Mangeshkar was awarded Bharat Ratna, the highest civilian honor of India, in the year 2001. So these are some very important factoids from the life and times of India's most famous female playback singer, Lata Mangeshkar. Yes, it has become one of the songs for the beating retreat. So Padma Vibhushan 1999, Bharat Ratna in 2001. I hope everybody has taken down these facts. Everybody has made a quick note of these facts. You'll be getting many more facts, of course, from news articles and other things, but these are some of the quick facts which I was able to compile. And hopefully, we should be able to answer these questions if and when they are asked in the exams. So, quickly moving on to the topic for the day, static GK. I'm going to put up a quote on the screen, and I want you to guess who is the person who is famous for having said this. The very first, Swaraj is my birthright. Of course, not in English, but Swaraj is my birthright, the transliteration of the paragraph. So, which famous person is associated with the quote, Swaraj is my birthright and I shall have it? I'm getting multiple answers. Lala Lajpat Rai, Subhash Chandra Bose, Mahatma Gandhi, Swami Vivekanand. No, the famous person with whom we associate the quote, Swaraj is my birthright, is Bal Gangadhar Tilak. Bal Gangadhar Tilak was also popularly known as Lok Manya Tilak, the person who is beloved of the people. Logon mein manya jo hai. So Lok Manya Tilak. Lok Manya was the title which he was known as, just as Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi was known as Mahatma and Jawaharlal Nehru was known as Chachaji. Similarly, Bal Gangadhar Tilak was known as Lokmanya, and it is Lokmanya Tilak or Bal Gangadhar Tilak who was famous for the quote, Swaraj is my birthright. In fact, the entire quote, according to some, is Swaraj is my birthright and I shall have it. He's also one of the trio of Lal, Bal and Pal. Lala Lajpat Rai, Bal Gangadhar Tilak and Bipin Chandra Pal. So Swaraj is my birthright was famously said by Lokmanya Tilak. Okay. Next one. A very, very interesting quote, something which we can always use in our life. So, Shailraj is asking, what was the famous quote of Subhash Chandra Bose? Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, I believe Dilli Chalo might have been one of his famous quotes. Right? He's associated with the Azad Hind Fauj. And I think one of his other quotes would have been, Tum mujhe khoon do, main tumhe azadi dunga, if I'm not mistaken. So, who said, take care to get what you like or you will be forced to like what you get? Something which we can always implement in our own lives. Take care to get what you like or you'll be forced to like what you get. It is none other than the famous playwright George Bernard Shaw. George Bernard Shaw was a famous playwright, right? And he's famous for works including Pygmalion. Pygmalion is, of course, a book on which the famous movie My Fair Lady was made, and Pygmalion is definitely a book. My Fair Lady is definitely a movie that I would recommend all of you must watch. It's very interesting on how language can help determine your class, your stature in society. The storyline of Pygmalion or My Fair Lady is very simple, where they show how by improving your diction, your speech, you can actually be considered to be a person of high society. So George Bernard Shaw, the famous playwright, of course said, take care to get what you like or you will be forced to like what you get. Immortal lines. Many, many people have used this. A thing of beauty is a joy forever. A thing of beauty is a joy forever. Very poetic line. Who has said this? A thing of beauty is a joy forever. This was an English poet who was called to be a part of the second generation of romantic poets. He died very young at the age of 25. And unfortunately, it's only after his death that his poems started becoming very, very famous. Some of his famous works include Ode to a Nightingale, Ode on a Grecian Urn, to Autumn, Ode to a Nightingale, and so on and so forth. It is none other than the famous poet John Keats. The passage, the line, a thing of beauty is a joy forever, is a line which was said by John Keats. It was composed by John Keats, famous poet. Okay. To be or not to be? That is the question. Very, very famous line from a very famous play. Khyati, this is a famous line. The line, of course, he has written many poems. So, the original person who wrote this line was none other than William Shakespeare. And the fictional character who said this is, of course, Hamlet, Prince Hamlet in the movie, in of course the scene in the play Hamlet. It's a soliloquy, and it's the beginning of the soliloquy given by Prince Hamlet. So, to be or not to be is by the fictional character Hamlet. But the original author, the writer who created the character and the entire play was none other than William Shakespeare. Dilli Chalo. Of course, I just mentioned this some time back, right? So, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, and he has been in news a lot this year, right? On recent Republic Day, the Prime Minister dedicated the hologram now, and the statues to come up soon in Delhi. The contributions of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose and the Azad Hind Fauj are being given a lot of prominence in the current year. So one of the famous quotes given by Netaji was, of course, Dilli Chalo. Now, very interesting line. Superstition is the religion of the feeble mind. Superstition is the religion of the feeble mind, if you are not strong enough. The Azad Hind Fauj, yes, although some people say that Azad Hind Fauj was not exactly created by Subhash Bose, but yes, Subhash Bose's name is associated with the Azad Hind Fauj. In popular myth, it is Subhash Chandra. It is made famous, of course, by association of Netaji. Although some people do say that he was not exactly the originator of the Azad Hind Fauj. Okay. Superstition is the religion of a feeble mind is a quote by a famous Irish British statesman, politician, who was the member of parliament in Great Britain. Right? So, superstition is the religion of the feeble mind is Edmund Burke. Now, Khyati, if the question is asked, they will not ask you who was the creator of Azad Hind Fauj if they want the answer as Netaji Subhash Chandra. They would rather frame the question that which personality is associated with the Azad Hind Fauj. So, if they want you to answer Netaji, then the wording of the question will be accordingly done. Provided they, of course, do not mindlessly copy paste it from a site where the information is wrongly given. You get that, Khyati? Okay. Now, somebody is asking, like I said, Edmund Burke was a politician and he was from Great Britain. So, obvious question is, is asking, what is the difference between the UK and Great Britain? In fact, you have to understand that for outsiders, we generally would say, okay, everything is the same. But Great Britain and United Kingdom is actually different. Great Britain specifically refers to the island which we call Britain. Britain or Great Britain is that one island. And the regions of Great Britain and Northern Ireland together will be known as politically the United Kingdom. Right? So UK or United Kingdom is a political term which includes Great Britain and the regions of Northern Ireland. So Great Britain is the island, and inclusive of other places, we call it the United Kingdom. Yes, there can be other places. There can be other places too. So United Kingdom is not just Great Britain, it is Great Britain plus the other regions. Hope everybody got this. Okay, now I'm getting this question on Manoj Singh. What is the name Manoj Singh? So Manoj Singh apparently was the person who established the Azad Hind Fauj. So apparently in 1941, Manoj Singh Mohan Singh, it's Mohan Singh or Manoj Singh, the name is not clear, but that is the person who established the Azad Hind Fauj in 1941, and in 1943 he passed on the leadership to Subhash Chandra Bose. Right? So Manoj Singh or Mohan Singh, the names are not very clear. Many places put it as Mohan Singh. Some places put it as Manoj Singh. So Manoj Singh or Mohan Singh was the person who started the Azad, who established, who created the Azad Hind Fauj, but it was brought into prominence when the leadership was passed on to Subhash Chandra Bose. Right. Okay. So superstition is a religion of feeble minds is Edmund Burke. Ooh, very interesting. Let 100 flowers bloom and let 1,000 school of thought contend. Let 100 flowers bloom and let 1,000 school of thought contend. Very famous personality, controversial but definitely very famous personality who said this. So it's actually a misquote. Let 100 flowers bloom and let 1,000 school of thought contend. It's basically a misquote. Some say that the original quote was something else. Right? It says, let 100 flowers blossom is supposedly the original quote. But anyway, the entire quote is supposedly given by Mao Zedong. Mao Zedong, China, is the person who is associated with the phrase let 100 flowers bloom. Sometimes it's also misquoted as let 1,000 flowers bloom. So the number, what is to bloom, whether it is to bloom or blossom, a lot of it is misquoted. But supposedly it's by, some say it's Mao Zedong, some say it's Mao Zedong. Anyway, it's the 100 flowers campaign, yes. So it's Mao basically who's attributed this quote. Okay. Aram haram hai. Something which is not at all followed by youngsters. Aram hi sab kuch hai apparently for most people. But who famously said Aram haram hai? Very famous personality. In India, if we don't know who said something, there are generally one or two people that we quote and 90% chance that our answer will be right. So if we don't know the exact person who quoted it, either we can attribute it to Mahatma Gandhi or we can simply attribute it to Pandit Nehru. In this case, the answer is Jawaharlal Nehru, right? So that might be a good chance that it could be someone like Gandhiji, because it is also Gandhiji's philosophy about work and other things. But this particular quote is attributed to Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, the first elected Prime Minister of our country. Right. Next one. Where wealth accumulates, men decay. Ooh, communist sounding thing. Where wealth accumulates, men decay. It's by an Anglo-Irish novelist, playwright, and poet. It's actually by a very famous Anglo-Irish novelist, playwright, and poet. The most famous novel by this person is a book called The Vicar of Wakefield. So the line where wealth accumulates, men decay is by the famous Anglo-Irish novelist, playwright, and poet, that is Oliver Goldsmith. Oliver Goldsmith is attributed the famous quote where wealth accumulates, men decay. Some of you got this right. Excellent. Okay. Quickly moving on to the next one. Beauty is truth. Truth is beauty, and that is all. Beauty is truth. Truth is beauty, and that is all. There's a slightly translated version in even Indian language. Not exactly these lines, but a similar sentiment. Satya hi Shiv hai, Shiv hi Sundar hai. It's very similar in sentiment. But the line beauty is truth, truth is beauty is obviously John Keats. Yes, Drishti, Satyam Shivam Sundaram. Right? It's not exactly the same thing, but very similar in sentiment that beauty is truth and truth is beauty, and that is all. So it's famously said by John Keats. Now, I came, I saw, I conquered. I came, I saw, I conquered. No, it was not Alexander, no, not Napoleon, not Descartes. Yes, Manya. Which one? Siddhant, yes. Yes, so the phrase in Latin is veni vidi vici. Veni, veni, vidi, vidi, vici, vici. Veni vidi vici is the line in Latin. And this quote is attributed to Julius Caesar, but actually written by William Shakespeare in his play on Julius Caesar. It is attributed that Julius Caesar said this, but more famously, the phrase was written by William Shakespeare. So, if Shakespeare is the option, you mark that. They will not give you both. It is supposedly said by Julius Caesar, but written down by William Shakespeare, not Leonardo da Vinci or Voltaire. No, 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 no. It's this is supposedly said by Julius Caesar, written by William Shakespeare. Okay. Good government is no substitute for self-government. Good government is no substitute for self-government. Is actually Alfred Tennyson. Although Mahatma Gandhi is attributed this quote, but the original quote was taken by him from Lord Alfred Tennyson. Right? Many people quote that in India, yes, this phrase was used by Mahatma Gandhi, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. But the original quote, good governance is no substitute for self-governance, is supposedly by Lord Alfred Tennyson. Anyway, if Alfred Tennyson is not the option and Indians are the options, we go with Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, MK Gandhi. Ooh, the classic definition of democracy. Whenever somebody is asked to define democracy, we use this famous line. Democratic government is of the people, for the people, and by the people. Who gave this original line when asked to describe what is democratic government? Who said a democratic government is of the people, for the people, and by the people? a name very famously associated with the United States of America, person who's legendary in the United States, also known as Honest Abe. This was none other than Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln, US President, was very famously attributed the quote, "A democratic government is of the people, for the people, and by the people." This is a very common phrase used in India, Jai Hind. In fact, in the army, in the services, even in the police, instead of bye bye, tata, goodbye, the most common sign off is Jai Hind. Who famously said Jai Hind for the first time? Or rather, who made this quote famous? So, the person who has attributed the quote Jai Hind, or at least attributed for making this quote famous, is none other than again Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. The quote Jai Hind is famously attributed to Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. Okay. Law grinds the poor and rich men rule the men. A very cynical thing. Many people seem to believe this. Law grinds the poor and rich men rule the men. Someone who apparently does not have a lot of trust that law is impartial. लॉ गरीबों को पिदाता है, परेशान करता है, एंड अमीर लोग ही अमीर लोग ही लोगों पे राज करते हैं. Correct. So again, we already saw a quote by this gentleman, none other than Oliver Goldsmith. Law grinds the poor and rich men rule the men. A quote by Oliver Goldsmith. Okay. The human soul needs actual beauty more than bread. Who can say? Now, you can make an intelligent guess here. If somebody says that we require beauty more than we even require bread, which is food, then who are we talking about? It can only be an artistic person who thinks that beauty is more important than even food. Right? Like Marie Antoinette of France is famously attributed the quote that when people did not have enough food or bread to eat, she said, "Let them eat cake." Now, probably an apocryphal story, right? But at least the story goes that when Marie Antoinette saw that people did not have food to eat, bread to eat, she said, "Let them eat cake." So only somebody who can be as dissociated with reality can come up with such a sentiment that the human soul needs actual beauty more than bread. But then, of course, this person is talking about the soul and not the human body. So obviously, the person many of you surprisingly got it right was none other than D.H. Lawrence, an English writer and poet. An English writer and poet very famous for Sons and Lovers. Some of the most famous things is one of the most famous works by this person is the book Sons and Lovers. So it was none other than D.H. Lawrence who said the human soul needs actual beauty more than bread. Okay. War is the greatest crime man perpetrates against man. Very true sentiment. Again, the type of sentiment can help you guess who could have said this. So it would have been an intelligent guess saying it is Mahatma Gandhi or Nelson Mandela or some other pacifist, but no, it's none of them. The person who famously is attributed the quote, "War is the greatest crime man perpetrates against man," is a religious reformer and prophet from Iran, who is often also regarded as the founder of Zoroastrianism. Zoroastrianism, basically Parsi religion, it comes from there, right? So then, a famous Iranian religious reformer and prophet who's also sometimes regarded as the founder of Zoroastrianism. It's Zarathustra, right? Zoroaster or Zarathustra is the person who's attributed the quote, "War is the greatest crime man perpetrates against man." So, an interesting question, and such a question surprisingly has been asked many a times. What is the religious book of the Parsis? The religious book of the Parsis. For example, the Bhagavad Gita is what is there for the Hindus, the Holy Quran and the Bible for the Muslims and the Christians. Which book is for the Parsis? And which book is famously associated with the Jews? We know about the major religions, but what about these? These are also, although not as big as the others, these are also some very significant religions at the international level, at the world level. The Bible technically is for the Christians. For the Parsis, the people who follow Zoroastrianism, it is the Zenda Avesta, Zenda Avesta. And the famous book associated with the Jews is the Torah. The Torah is supposedly one of the books associated with the Jews. There can be others also. This is one of the books famously associated with the Jews, the Torah. Of course, the Bible has different versions. You have the Old Commandments, you have the New Commandments, the various versions, and so on and so forth. So, for the Jews, the Torah is Torah, Torah. Torah, Torah for the Jews. And Zenda Avesta, Zenda Avesta. Of course, these are just English spellings. The names are not originally English. So these are just English transliterations. The Zenda Avesta for the Parsis and the Torah for the Jews. Okay. Now, there was never a good war or a bad peace. Famous politician, scientist, inventor. There was never a good war or a bad peace. उत्तरायण के दिन भाई साहब को बहुत याद करते होंगे साइंटिस्ट्स. Scientists would be remembering this gentleman on the day of Uttarayan. Because Uttarayan is the kite flying festival, and this person is very famously associated with an experiment related to flying a kite, where he flew a kite with a metal string and attached a key to it, and lightning conduction basically he experimented with. So there was never a good war or a bad peace. A great scientist, inventor, and politician, none other than Benjamin Franklin. Ben Franklin. He's associated with so many great quotes. Prolific person, very prolific person, a polymath, expert in many fields. Sir Benjamin Franklin. Okay. The only man who never makes mistakes is the man who never does anything. I believe this. Students should also believe this. Those who never give any answers in the class will never make any mistakes, but then they are also not going to learn anything, right? If you give an answer and you make a mistake, it is still fine. You will learn from it. So, if you want to avoid making mistakes, then you will never do anything in life, and that is not good. It's always good to do something, make mistakes, learn from it, and move on. So, the only man who never makes mistakes is the man who never does anything, was none other than the US President Theodore Roosevelt. Theodore Roosevelt. There's a very famous children's item supposedly named after this person. Do you know there's a very famous item associated with children? There's a very famous item of children named after Theodore Roosevelt. You got it. Yes. It is the famous teddy bear. The word teddy in teddy bear is supposedly named after Theodore Roosevelt. If you have watched the movie Night at the Museum, there are multiple versions of that. Ben Stiller is the main actor. But along with Ben Stiller, we also have a famous actor who plays the role of Theodore Roosevelt in the movie. So if you have seen the movie Night at the Museum, Theodore Roosevelt is, it's not a it's sort of a fictional character. It doesn't actually show anything of his real life in the movie. It's a time pass movie. But Theodore Roosevelt is the president who's shown in Night at the Museum. Okay. Oh, this should be pretty obvious. Truth and non-violence is my god. That's right, Akshat. It was Robin Williams who played the role of Theodore Roosevelt. Yes, I forgot his name. That was Robin Williams. Yes. Come on. ये तो almost 100% everybody will get. Right? Even if you guess it, hardly any chance of getting it wrong. Truth and non-violence is my god is obviously Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. Do you know the famous book written by Gandhi containing the word truth in it in the title? Gandhi is famous for many works, but the one famous book which contains the word truth in the title, yes, it is My Experiments with Truth. So Gandhi's famous book is My Experiments with Truth. Okay. Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan. Now obviously people are modifying it into Jai Kisan, Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan, Jai Vigyan. But the original quote, Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan. So Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan is famously attributed to Lal Bahadur Shastri. Lal Bahadur Shastri. Right? Tashkent, he's associated with the Tashkent Treaty and the mysterious death after the immediate signing of the Tashkent Treaty. Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan is a quote mostly associated with Lal Bahadur Shastri. Was he the Prime Minister? Yes, he was. He was at that time. Ooh, Eureka, Eureka. This is Greek. Eureka, Eureka. Very famous story. How many of you know the story behind this quote, Eureka, Eureka? Oh, many of you say yes. For those who don't know, let me quickly tell you. It's a very interesting story. So there was this king in ancient Greece, and he had a crown, right? He had commissioned a crown from his goldsmith, but he was suspicious. He had given some specific quantity of gold, but he was suspicious कि शायद सोने में मिलावट की है. So the crown was very beautiful. He did not want to destroy it, right? He did not. You can obviously melt the gold to find out whether it is pure or not. But because he liked the crown so much, he did not want to melt it. So he wanted to find out whether this crown is made of actual gold or not without destroying the crown. He called his famous mathematician scientist and said, okay, here is the crown. Without causing any damage to the crown, I want you to tell me whether this is made of actual gold or not. So our good old mathematician scientist took the challenge, but he could not think of anything. One day when he was sitting and taking a bath in a public bath, and in Greek they used to have these places called public baths. So when he was sitting and having a bath in the public bath, he noticed that when he stepped into the bath, the level of water rose, right? And you would have observed it that if you put your hand in a bucket full of water, the level of water in the bucket rises. So our gentleman was quickly able to deduce that the amount of water displaced is equal to the volume of the object inserted. The amount of water being displaced is equal to the volume of the object being inserted, and he was quickly able to relate volume with density. So obviously if it was pure gold, density would have been different. If it was a mixture, density would have been different. So this gave him the idea that by simply measuring the displacement of water, I will be able to identify the answer. So when this batti went off in his mind, he jumped out of the bath, forgot that he was not wearing anything, and started running naked through the streets, shouting, I have found it, I have found it. And in Greek, I have found it is Eureka. So he was shouting Eureka or Murika. So Eureka, Eureka, it was Archimedes who, when he discovered this principle, famously said these words while running around naked in the streets of the kingdom. Interesting story, but that's the history of this. Eureka, Eureka. Archimedes supposedly is also has said that give me a long enough stick and a place to stand and I can move the earth. He was of course talking about the principle of lever and fulcrum, where even by exerting a small force you can move objects of great weight. So if he said, if you give me a stick which is long and strong enough and some place where I can stand, then using the principle of lever and fulcrum I can move the entire earth. So Eureka, Eureka, Archimedes. Okay. Just as I would not like to be a slave, so I would not like to be a master. Rishit, correct. We've already seen this gentleman before. He was famously killed when he went to watch a play in a theater. So, the person assassinated when he went to watch a play in a theater, and the person who is attributed with this quote, just as I would not like to be a slave, so I would not like to be a master, is none other than Honest Abe, Abraham Lincoln. Okay. Brevity is the soul of wit. Excellent advice for writers. If you want to write something funny, if you want to be funny, if you want to do comedy, brevity or keeping it short is often the best thing. If you keep on writing long and long and long, you often lose the fun of the joke. Brevity is the soul of wit. Could be said by a character, Akshat Juhi, you're giving me a character, but the writer, the original author. Just like Veni Vidi Vici, supposedly said by Julius Caesar, but written by Shakespeare. So brevity is the soul of wit. The original quote is attributed as the work of Shakespeare. Could be Polonius, but the Polonius would be a character, right? It's Shakespeare who would have penned the line. So brevity is the soul of wit. Yes, the person who shot down Abraham Lincoln was John Wilkes Booth. Yes, John Wilkes Booth is the person who shot when Abraham Lincoln was at the Ford Theatre. Surprisingly, Ford was shot when he was riding in a Lincoln car. There's a lot of similarities there. Okay. Now, East is East and West is West, and never the twain shall meet. This person was literally talking about the difference between the East and the West, Eastern civilization, Western civilization, right? Correct, Tanvi. Siddhant, correct. So the person famously attributed the quote, East is East and West is West and never the twain shall meet, is none other than Rudyard Kipling. By the way, do you know the most famous work of Rudyard Kipling was a writer? The most famous book written by Rudyard Kipling? Yes. The most famous work of Rudyard Kipling is The Jungle Book and Other Stories. The entire book's name is actually The Jungle Book and Other Stories. It is a collection of 4 stories actually. The Jungle Book is only the first story in the series of 4 stories. And of course, the Jungle Book, including the famous characters of Mowgli, Sher Khan, Bagheera, Baloo, and Kaa. We have a very famous movie. In fact, we have multiple movies made on the story. We used to have a cartoon series based on the Jungle Book. So, Jungle Book was written by Rudyard Kipling. And it is Kipling who said, East is East and West is West, and never the twain shall meet. By the way, have you guys either seen or read the Jungle Book? Okay, many of you said that you have seen the movie. Even if you have not read the book, you have seen the movie. Then let me ask you a question. In the live action version, the recent live action version of the Jungle Book, in the Hindi adaptation, which person gave the voiceover to the serpent Ka, the snake Ka, was given voiceover in the Hindi version by which famous person? हाँ, ये पता होता है सबको. ऑथर का नाम पता हो ना हो, वॉइस ओवर आर्टिस्ट का नाम पता होता है, especially when the voice over artist is Priyanka Chopra. Okay, so Rishit, if you have seen the English version, who voices the English version of Ka? So, if the Indian version Ka was voiced by Priyanka Chopra, in the English version, the original version, the voiceover for Ka is by Scarlett Johansson, the actress who plays Black Widow in the Avengers series. So it's Scarlett Johansson who is the voiceover artist for Ka, the snake, in the English version. Anyway, knowledge is power. In the Game of Thrones, the person says knowledge is power, and Cersei, she has her people attack him, and then famously says, power is power. But that is the Game of Thrones. The original quote, knowledge is power. Who said it? So this is interesting. Okay. So although many people say that Francis Bacon said that, Francis Bacon is not the person who is originally attributed the quote with knowledge is power. The quote which Francis Bacon said is knowledge itself is power. Francis Bacon's quote is knowledge itself is power. The quote knowledge is power, which is scientia potentia est, right? The Latin scientia potentia est was actually written by the secretary to Francis Bacon, a person called Thomas Hobbes. So knowledge itself is power is the quote by Francis Bacon, but the quote knowledge is power, and it's a different quote, was actually by the secretary to Bacon, a person called Thomas Hobbes. Right? So knowledge itself is power is of Francis Bacon, but knowledge is power is Thomas Hobbes. By the way, Hobbes and Calvin, Calvin and Hobbes are two very famous philosophers. And based on the two philosophers, we of course have the famous comic strip of Calvin and Hobbes. So Calvin and Hobbes, if you are a fan of the comic strip Calvin and Hobbes, the names Calvin and Hobbes are actually taken from the names of two very famous philosophers, Sir Calvin and Sir Hobbes. They were actually two famous philosophers. And of course, Calvin and Hobbes, the famous comic strip, also talks a lot about philosophy in a funny manner. How many are there any Calvin and Hobbes fans here in this group? And are there any people who have not even heard of Calvin and Hobbes? Because Times of India regularly contains cartoons of Calvin and Hobbes every day. If you read Times of India or Ahmedabad Mirror, Calvin and Hobbes का comic strip आता है. It's one of the most famous comic strips in the world actually. So the name Calvin and Hobbes, they are supposedly taken from the name of two philosophers. Yes, Rishit, a lot of papers will carry it because it's a syndicated comic strip. So it's not exclusively to one newspaper. It will be carried in a lot of different newspapers. In fact, there are entire books available of compiled comic strips of Calvin and Hobbes. Anyway, who said man is by nature a political creature? Man is by nature a political creature. Anmol is right. So anything which sounds like philosophy is basically some Greek philosopher. So obviously, Greek philosopher who was also supposedly the teacher for Alexander the Great, is none other than Aristotle. So Aristotle, Plato, Socrates, all famous Greek philosophers, एक दूसरे के student teachers. So one among them is of course Aristotle, who was the teacher for Alexander the Great. He was a Greek philosopher and he said man is by nature a political animal. Okay. Temptation usually comes in through a door that has deliberately been left open. Yes. So this is by a famous businessman from the US who has given a lot many famous quotes. A famous businessman from the US, he has said things like success is simple, do what's right the right way at the right time. He said it doesn't take great men to do things, but it is doing things that make men great. He said only a strong tree can stand alone. So some of these famous quotes was by a famous businessman. In fact, he was from 1905 to 1998, so not Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett is still alive. This person was from 1905 to 1998, and it was the businessman Arnold Glasow. Arnold Glasow is the person who is given the quote, temptation usually comes in through a door that has deliberately been left open. He also said, a good leader takes a little more than his share of the blame, a little less than his share of the credit. He said, success isn't a result of spontaneous combustion, you must set yourself on fire. Some brilliant quotes attributed to this person. Next. I therefore want freedom immediately, this very night, before dawn, if it can be had. Kathy, yes, Gloombusters, correct. That's Glassow's book. Now, this quote, I therefore want freedom immediately, this very night, before dawn, if it can be had, is a very surprising quote because this person originally was going to be satisfied with dominion status. This person was once upon a time okay with just getting partial independence, dominion status. It's only after a lot many incidents that he started saying, I want Sampurna Swaraj and independence. So, I therefore want freedom immediately this very night before dawn if it can be had, was none other than Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. There was a lot of dissent among the people of that era. Some people were okay with getting partial independence. They said if we get dominion status, that is fair enough. But radicals said that complete independence or nothing else. Nothing else will do. And only when people started following these extremists, so to say, that even liberals they decided okay, it's not worth going in for dominion status, let's go for complete independence. Right. So these were some famous quotes, right? There are literally hundreds and thousands of other famous quotes. It's not only important to know these quotes, but also you can use them when you're writing your statements of purpose or essays, because essay writing is a major component of many exams. So if you know some of these quotes, you can often use them correctly in the essay when you're writing the writing ability test, and it will often get you better points. So do make it a point to know as many quotes as you can. We quickly move on to the second part of what we have planned for today, and that is questions related to Indian art and culture. Okay, this was once asked in the exam, one of the entrance exams. The Sangai festival is celebrated in which state of India? I want the name of the state. The Sangai festival. Now, what is the Sangai festival? The Sangai festival is basically celebration of a type of deer, right? The Sangai is a specific type of deer which is found in this region. So the Sangai festival is a celebration of this deer and a cultural festival in Manipur. The Sangai festival, the Sangai is nothing but a type of deer found in Manipur. I think it's a state animal of that place. So the Sangai festival, just like the Hornbill festival. So the Sangai festival is Manipur and the Hornbill festival. So Hornbill is a type of bird. So the famous Hornbill festival is which state? Yes, northeastern state. Just as you have the Sangai festival for Manipur, the Hornbill festival is of course Nagaland. Just like the Sangai is Manipur, the Hornbill festival is Nagaland. Elephant festival. Which state celebrates the elephant festival? And even I would have been tempted to mark Kerala because Kerala is one of the places where the elephant is famous. But no, Kerala is not a city. And if you read carefully, everybody is giving me names of states, guys. Come on. Odisha, Rajasthan, Kerala, these are all states. And the question, West Bengal is a state. The question says, which city is the elephant festival celebrated annually? And the city in which the elephant festival is celebrated is Jaipur. So, the Thrissur Puram Elephant Festival is in the state of Kerala, but the city in which we have the elephant festival is Jaipur, Rajasthan. Surprising, but not so surprising because there are three animals which are traditionally associated with the state of Rajasthan. This includes the elephant, the horse, and the camel. Right? The elephant, the horse, and the camel are traditionally associated with different cities of Rajasthan. Okay, moving on. Gurmukhi, Dogri, and Sindhi scripts. Like the script is something you write in. For example, we write Hindi, Gujarati, everything using the Devanagari script. Right? Hindi, come on guys. Question मैं बोल रहा हूँ. So if you can read Hindi, you will also be able to read Gujarati and Marathi even if you don't understand it. Even if you can't understand Marathi, you can read Marathi because it is the Devanagari script. But languages like Gurmukhi, Dogri, and Sindhi are from which script? Yes, Anmol, Khyati, correct. So Sharon, Gurmukhi is from this based on this script. Writing. So, when we talk about Gurmukhi, Dogri, and Sindhi, the written script is the Sarda script. Right? Gurmukhi, Dogri, and Sindhi scripts, they're all developed from something known as the Sarda script. Languages like Hindi, Gujarati, Marathi, they are all following the Devanagari script. But Gurmukhi, Dogri, Sindhi, they are all evolved from the Sarda script. By the way, does anybody here know how to write the numbers in Arabic? Arabic numerals? Most of you are saying no. Okay. Very surprised. I'm very surprised that most people don't know to write the Arabic numerals. Okay. These I don't know. Have you ever seen numbers like this? These are all Arabic numerals. We write numbers in the Arabic numeral. Which language do you think these were? When we write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 like this, these are known as Arabic numerals. And the Roman numerals we definitely know 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. These are the Roman numerals. These are known as the Arabic numerals. So the numbers which we write traditionally, they are known as Arabic numerals. Surprising, right? We thought Arabic numerals kya hoga? Literally, this is Arabic numerals. Okay. The Basava Shri Award. Okay. The Basava Shri Award is given by which state government? Now, if you are familiar with Indian names, then you will be able to guess the word Basava, if you know that. So there are certain names which are associated with certain regions. For example, Vishweshwaraya, Basavaraya, Krishnamaraya. These are typically Kannadiga names, right? So the word Basava, Basava Shri, is a Kannada word. And of course, if you're talking about Kannadiga words, then it has to be the state government of Karnataka. Yes, Basavaraj Bommai. Okay, good. So Basava Shri Award, even if you don't know exactly what it is, if you understand certain words as belonging to certain regions, then you'll be able to quickly identify. So the Basava Shri Award is Karnataka. Puneeth Rajkumar won this recently. Okay, I was not aware of that. Anmol, thanks. Okay, the Kila Rai Pithoda was built by the Tomar Rajputs. But in which city is Kila Rai Pithoda? Lal Killa, of course, we know. But Kila Rai Pithoda, which was built by the Tomar Rajputs. Now, many of you, I'm getting two answers. I think because of the word Tomar Rajputs, many of them are guessing it is Rajasthan. But no. Kila Rai Pithoda is actually New Delhi. Kila Rai Pithoda is in New Delhi. Okay, I have been to Delhi, but I don't recall seeing this place. But of course, I haven't seen much. So Kila Rai Pithoda. Next time I go, I'll try to make it a point to see this. Okay, there is a very famous place called Adhai Din Ka Jhopda. You might have studied this in history. Do you know which city it is in? In or near which famous city is this place? Adhai Din Ka Jhopda. Yes, Adhai Din Ka Jhopda is famously in Ajmer. Dargah Sharif. Ajmer is famous for the Dargah Sharif, but Adhai Din Ka Jhopda is a famous place, location near Ajmer. Okay. Ikebana, a famous Japanese art, is related to what? Perfect. Ikebana is what? Rishit, more specific. So Ikebana is, of course, flower decoration. The art of folding paper into shapes is what? The Japanese art of folding paper into different shapes is, of course, origami. It's not quilling. The Japanese art of folding paper into shapes is called origami. And the Japanese art of creating miniature trees, not just plants, but miniature trees, The Japanese art of creating miniature trees, full grown trees but in very small size, is of course bonsai. Bonsai, B-O-N-S-A-I, bonsai. And the Japanese art of fighting with empty hands. The name is literally translated into empty hands. Khyati, we have plants. No, no. Bonsai is not the name of a plant. Bonsai is the name of the art of creating any tree in a small form. So bonsai is not the name of a plant. It is the art of creating miniature trees. So any small tree is called a bonsai. It's a type of art. So bonsai trees bolte hain, they literally are small. Okay. So the art of fighting with empty hands. Surprisingly, in Sanskrit, the word for hand is kar, and in Japanese, the word for hand is also kara. So karate or karate, right? As the Americans will karate, or as the Japanese will call karate. The Japanese art of fighting with empty hands is karate. Okay. Elephanta Caves, Maharashtra. Elephanta Caves were during which dynasty? Nah, it's not. Nah, yes, Shruth got it. Uh, 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 no. ख्याति 500 साल नहीं, मैं पूछा कौन सी डायना. अजंता एलोरा तो केव्स हैं माही. अजंता एलोरा आर आल्सो केव्स. आई एम आस्किंग ड्यूरिंग विच डायनेस्टी, द रूल ऑफ विच किंग्स. Right, for example, we have the Mughal dynasty, we have the slave dynasty. Down south you have the Cholan, Cheran and Pandyan dynasty, we have the Gupta dynasty, the Maurya dynasty, and so on. Kamikaze suicidal attacks, Shailraj. Kamikaze attacks, lightning fast or suicidal attacks. So when they attack knowing that they are not going to survive, they call it kamikaze attacks. मरेंगे तो सही लेकिन मार के मरेंगे. Anyway, the Elephanta caves are associated with the Rashtrakutas. The Rashtrakuta dynasty is associated with the development of the Elephanta caves. Krishnaraj, Khyati, Krishnadevaraya was in the down Karnataka side, Vijayanagar Empire and all that. Krishnadevaraya. But the Elephanta caves is the Rashtrakutas. Okay. The Central Institute of Indian Languages institution. Where is it located? The Central Institute of Indian Languages. A good guess, Rishit, but no. Good guesses. It's not Delhi, it's not Varanasi, it's not Kolkata. Soumya got it. Khyati got it. Pranjal, no. Drishti, spelling gadbad hai, but generally you are right. Riya, no. So the Central Institute of Indian Languages is actually in Mysore, down south. Mysuru is the new name. Mysore is the old name, just like Bangalore is now Bengaluru. Similar, Mysore is now Mysuru. So Mysuru is down south. Of course, famous for its masala dosas, the Mysore masala dosa, the Mysore pak, and so on. Very famous. Fort, so practically every city is famous. Even Ahmedabad is famous for forts. Which famous fort is there in Ahmedabad? Of course, it's no longer there, but you can still see the remains. So which famous fort remains can you see in Ahmedabad? Yes, Shruth got it. Ahmedabad is famous for which fort? In fact, Ahmedabad's older parts is known as the walled city. Right, Eastern Ahmedabad was supposedly entire this within this fort. So it is the Bhadra fort, Bhadra Killa. Today the area of Bhadra, right, you can't see the forts, but you can still see the gates. You can see I think there are 17 or 19 gates famous as the Darwazas, the Lal Darwaza, Teen Darwaza, Prem Darwaza, Delhi Darwaza, Astoria Darwaza, Raipur Darwaza. All these were actually gates belonging to a single fort, and that was the Bhadra fort. The entire city, at least the old city, was completely circled by the Bhadra fort. Now the fort walls are very rarely seen, but the gates are still standing. Now do you know, these gates are actually replicas. They are not the first. Originally these gates were somewhere else, and in Ahmedabad they were created as replicas. So today, where can you see the original gates all these gates that you see in Ahmedabad, all these darwajas that we see in Ahmedabad, originally, where do you go to see those darwajas? Ahmedabad, we know Delhi Darwaza, Astoria Darwaza, Prem Darwaza, and all that. But these darwajas were actually inspired by the gates of some other place. Delhi, no, not so far. In fact, Smith, correct. It was originally the capital of the state. So, if you go to Patan, if you go to Patan, you will see these darwajas, right? If you go to Patan, like Patan is very famous for the Patola sarees. Do you know that Patan is famous for the Patola sarees? Kathy, my question. Okay, in Ahmedabad we have all this Prem Darwaza, Delhi Darwaza, Astoria Darwaza, but these darwazas were actually created, inspired by the darwajas in some other place. So originally these darwajas were there in Patan, and in Ahmedabad they are created taking inspiration from those original darwajas. So yes, Vedanshi. So Patan was famous for, is still famous for its patola saris. Saris so thin, I mean saris so great that they can survive for more than 400 years. Patan ni patola they are known as. Yes. This place is also, of course, and as Vedanshi very rightly pointed out, Patan is also very famous for the Rani Ki Vav. Just like we have the Adalaj Vav in Ahmedabad, there is a very famous spot called the Rani Ki Vav, which is there in Patan. Historical places. Anyway, now a little bit of culture. The 100 rupee note, yes, the Rani Ki Vav 100 rupee note. The Rudra Mahalaya in Siddhpur, very good. Chalo. Abhang is a type of music. It's actually a type of songs. But in respect to Indian music, the abhangs are songs for which god? Freya, I will not give you full points for that. Anmol, exact. Mahek, no. Vedanshi, not exactly. I need the specific name of the god. For example, you can say that Ram and Krishna are all Vishnu avatar, but Vishnu, Ram, and Krishna are technically different. So, which specific god or which specific deity is worshipped by devotional songs known as Abhang? Khyati, yes. Daksh, yes. So it is a form of Krishna, if I am not mistaken, but the specific god for whom Abhangs were composed is Vithala. There's a place called Pandharpur, Maharashtra side, Pandharpur. So Vithal is supposedly the deity of that specific place. So the Abhang songs, Abhang and Kirtans, they are known as. So the Abhangs, they are very specifically devotional songs written for Vithal, Lord Vithala. Okay. English का तो सबको पता है. There are 26 letters in the English alphabet. Chaitanya, yes. Vithala is a specific swaroop of Vishnu. But you can't say Abhang is for Vishnu. Abhang is not for Vishnu. Abhang is very specific for Vithal. Just like Ram is a swaroop of Vishnu, is an avatar of Vishnu. But you will not say that Sita is the wife of Vishnu. So Sita is the wife of Ram. So like that, Abhang is very specifically for Vithal. लेटर्स, अंग्रेजी में तो सबको पता है 26 लेटर्स हैं. संस्कृत में कितने हैं? Nobody is getting it. Okay, somebody getting it. Okay, so this is slightly pangawala, right? It depends on which source you are taking. If you take a look at the Shiv Sutra, Shiv Sutra says that there are 42 letters in the Sanskrit alphabet. If you include the letters included by Sanskrit grammarian Panini, then it becomes 51. Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan added another letter, making it 52. If you go according to Tamil Karagam, then according to the Tamil version, there are only 31. Some say there are 54. So there is no clear answer to this question. And of course, because of that, they should not ask in the exam. But the most common response that we get is either 32, 42, or 54. 42 and 54 are the most commonly accepted numbers. The point is, however, there are different versions, and hence it is not a single answer to this. Anyway, now monasteries associated with Buddhism. The Rigon Thupten Mindroling Monastery, which was inaugurated by the Dalai Lama in the year 2010, is in which state of India? The Rigon Thupten Mindroling Monastery. This was inaugurated by the Dalai Lama in 2010. Krishit, Karnataka to down south आ गया. Down south it's more of Hinduism. Buddhism is generally northeastern side. As you go more towards the northeast, you will get it. This of course is not that much northeast. It's not that much northeast. But Karnataka तो बहुत ज़्यादा south हो गया. So Rigon Thupten Mindroling Monastery, inaugurated by the Dalai Lama in 2010, is in Odisha. Right? Odisha is the place where the Rigon Thupten Mindroling Monastery is located. Beautiful places. So yet another very famous monastery, the Rumtek Monastery. Where would you find the Rumtek Monastery? And this place I have actually been to this monastery. Fantastic place. Very calm, very colorful. You can find young 3, 4, 5-year-old kids, young monks running around and playing football. You will actually find them wearing those red saffronish monk clothes, shaved heads, and wearing proper soccer shoes and playing football. Very cheerful people. It's in India. Vedanshi, it's in India. I'm talking all about Indian culture. Nepal is not in India. So, Rishit, I'm talking about a particular state. You gave me a very specific city. I just want the state. So, the Rumtek Monastery is, of course, in Sikkim. Gangtok is the city. The state is Sikkim. It's on the hills. Yes, the entire state of Sikkim is in the hills. The entire state of Sikkim is in the hilly regions. The entire state is on the hill. Okay. I think Sikkim was also the first state to be declared 100% organic or something, if I'm not mistaken. Also 100% plastic free and stuff like that. Beautiful place. In fact, in the recent pandemic conditions, one of the places to have the least amount of infections in the beginning. Of course, then it grew, but in the beginning, it was relatively very secluded and very safe. Anyway, now the Sahitya Academy Awards are basically in literature for languages, right? But how many Indian languages are recognized by the Sahitya Academy for the awards? Kathy, no, slightly off. Okay. So of course there are 22 listed languages, right? If you take a look at the officially listed languages, then there are of course 22 listed languages. But the Sahitya Academy Award is not just these 22 listed languages, right? It considers 24 major Indian languages in which the awards can be given. So there are 24 major languages in which the award can be given. If you want the list of names, I'm just going to quickly go through them. It includes Assamese, Bengali, Bodo, Dogri, English, Gujarati, Hindi, Kannada, Kashmir, Konkani, Maithili, Malayalam, Meitei, Marathi, Nepali, Odia, Punjabi, Rajasthani, Sanskrit, Santali, Sindhi, Tamil, Telugu, and Urdu. So these are the 24 languages in which the Sahitya Academy award is given. 22 is only the number of official languages, but the Sahitya Academy Awards is recognized in 24 languages. So yes, the answer is 24. It includes 22 official languages, but total is 24. Sahitya Academy Awards, 24 languages. Okay. Sikhism. It developed as an offshoot of Hinduism. In fact, even today in India, when we say the Hindu religion, the laws for Hindus, it covers four major religions actually. It covers the Hindus, it covers the Jains, it covers the Buddhists, and it covers the Sikhs. Right? Law wise, Hindu laws are applicable not only to Hindus but also to Buddhists, Sikhs, and Jains. So, which Sikh Guru declared that the Guru Granth Sahib will be the holy scripture of Sikhism and will be the permanent Guru of the Sikhs? There were total 10 Sikh Gurus, right? Starting with of course Guru Nanak Sahib. But who declared, which Sikh Guru declared that the Guru Granth Sahib will now be considered the permanent Guru of the Sikhs? So yes, most of you did get it right. The Sikh Guru who declared that the Guru Granth Sahib will be the holy scripture of Sikhism is of course Guru Gobind Singh. Guru Gobind Singh or Guru Gobind Singh was the Sikh Guru who declared that the Guru Granth Sahib, the holy book, will be the permanent Guru of the Sikhs. The 10th one, yes. Okay. Gujaratis are very much aware of Do Tali and Teen Tali during Garba. But the folk dance Tera Tali is associated with which state? Majority getting it right. So, of course, it has to be some place where Chaitanya, it cannot be a South Indian state. Look at the name Tera Tali. It's not a South Indian word. Tera, 13. Right? It sounds Hindi-ish. So it can be a place, it should be some place either west or north. Right? Tera Tali. So Tera Tali is basically from a tribe called the Kamar tribe, which is performed in the Pushkar fair near Ajmer. So of course the state is Rajasthan. Tera Tali is actually of the Kamar tribe of Rajasthan, which they traditionally performed in the Pushkar fair near Ajmer. Now, the place Pushkar is famous for a specific type of temple and a fair. Can you name them? Pushkar is famous for a specific temple. The Pushkar temple is apparently one of the very few, or rather the only place which has a temple for Lord Brahma. You will find temples of Vishnu, Shiv, and all the other gods in multiple places. But Pushkar is one of the only places where the Brahma temple is there. And of course, the fair is the Pushkar fair, which is also famous as the camel fair. So Pushkar is famous for the Brahma temple and the Pushkar camel fair. Happens near the Pushkar desert. Yes. Okay. Now, the Dalai Lamas, right? If you take a look at Tibet, it's a lot of dispute is going on about the religious head of the Tibetans, and the Chinese are creating a lot of problems. But the Dalai Lamas are supposed to be the spiritual heads of the Tibetans. And the Dalai Lama, of course, is in their government in exile is right now at Makloidganj near Dalhousie. Near Dharamsala. Dharamsala, Makloidganj is where the Tibetan government in exile headed by the Dalai Lama is. My question is, Dalai Lamas are considered to be the reincarnations of which famous deity? Drishti and Rishit, perfect. Mahi, it is a rough answer. I want a very specific answer. Juhi, that is a very approximate answer. I want a specific answer. Which specific person? Sharon, that is... guys, those who are saying Gautam Buddha, Gautam Buddha is a very generic one, right? The Dalai Lamas are not considered to be reincarnation of just Gautam Buddha. They are considered to be reincarnation of a very specific one called Avalokiteshvara. The Dalai Lamas are considered to be the reincarnation, the Swarup of Avalokiteshvara. Reincarnations are what? Avatars, right? Like Ram is the reincarnation of Vishnu, Krishna is the reincarnation of Vishnu. So, just like that, all the Dalai Lamas, the spiritual heads of the Tibetans, are considered to be reincarnations of Avalokiteshvara. Okay, next, the Black Pagoda. Pagoda is, of course, the religious temple like place for the Buddhists. But the Black Pagoda is in which state? Juhi, close but not exactly. Kutch is not a state, Sharon. Kutch is in Gujarat. And Pagoda, Gujarat, no. MP, no. Maharashtra, no. Khyati, yes. Shachman, yes. Now people are getting it. So, yes, the Black Pagoda is famously in the state of Odisha. Odisha is what Black Pagoda is. Okay. Down south. In south, the Golden Pagoda is in Mumbai. Maybe, I'm not sure. Are you talking about the one which is there on the way to what is this place? Thane से पुणे एक्सप्रेस हाईवे पकड़ने के लिए करनाल, no, not Karnala. Just before you reach Vashi and I don't remember. Is that the Golden Pagoda you are referring to, Freya? Near SL World. I don't know whether it's an ancient place or it's just a tourist attraction. Anyway, down south there are three famous dynasties: the Choran, the Cheran, and the Pandyan. Right? Non-South Indians would call it Chola, Chera, and Pandya. It's not Chola, Chera, Pandya. It's Choran, Cheran, and Pandyan. So the Choran, Cheran, and Pandyan may say Raja Choran, who was the monarch of the Chora dynasty in 1010, he built the Raja Rajeshwaram temple. This is 1010 years now. So the Raja Rajeshwaram temple built by Raja Choran is devoted to which god? Oh yes. When you're talking about the Choran dynasty, we of Shrut, no. It's Vishnu bilkul nahi. Down south, Chorans, they are basically Shiv Bhakts. Right? They are Shiv Bhakts. Shaivites. So the Raja Rajeshwaram temple is basically a Shiv temple. And so if you hear a lot of stories and myths from down south, you will find that the maximum quarrels and fights were actually between the worshippers of Shiva and the worshippers of Vishnu. Between the Shaivites and Vaishnavites itself, there used to be a lot of rivalry. Right? So the Raja Rajeshwaram temple is in Tanjavur, Tamil Nadu. Khyati, Tanjavur is in Tamil Nadu. Tanjavur is not Andhra Pradesh. Tanjavur is Tamil Nadu. I should know, it's my city, my place. I come from near Tanjavur, so I know this. Tanjore. It's also known, the English called it Tanjore, but it's actually Tanjavur. So Tanjavur is in Tamil Nadu. So yes, Raja Rajeshwaram temple is in Tanjavur. Okay. Darbhanga Castle. The entire region, in fact, is famous. But Darbhanga Castle is in which place? Which state? So the Darbhanga Castle, originally the city, no, it's not in Darbhanga city. The original name of the city, I mean, not original, the previous name of the city was Allahabad. Now it is, of course, Prayagraj. And the state is none other than Uttar Pradesh. Darbhanga, although Darbhanga region is associated more with Bihar, but Darbhanga Castle is surprisingly in Uttar Pradesh. Right? The Darbhanga region, Darbhanga, Maithili, all these regions are famously associated with the state of Bihar. But Darbhanga Castle itself is in Uttar Pradesh. It's actually in Prayagraj, Allahabad. And last question for the day. मूविंग गलत थोड़ी है दृष्टि, क्यों भाई? भोपाल, भोपाल एंड भोपाल में कंफ्यूज। जोधपुर, जोधपुर चार रास्ता कहां पे है दृष्टि? जोधपुर चार रास्ता कहां पे है? थाईलैंड का? अच्छा, यू आर आंसरिंग दिस क्वेश्चन। ओके, जोधपुर चार रास्ता इज इन अहमदाबाद बट द सिटी ऑफ जोधपुर इज एक्चुअली इन राजस्थान। तो ये चीटिंग नहीं हुआ? रायपुर दरवाजा कहां पे है? रायपुर दरवाजा अहमदाबाद में है बट रायपुर शहर तो छत्तीसगढ़ में है। ये चीटिंग नहीं हुआ? सो सिटी नेम्स क्रॉस एंड प्लेस नेम क्रॉस बहुत कॉमन होता है, बहुत कॉमन होता है। आई वोंट बी सरप्राइज्ड। सो यस, द लास्ट क्वेश्चन, टेम्पल ऑफ द एमरल्ड बुद्धा इज इन विच कंट्री? सो बुद्धिस्ट कंट्री, साउथ ईस्ट एशियन कंट्रीज। सो द टेम्पल ऑफ द एमरल्ड बुद्धा is none other than Thailand. The Emerald Buddha is Thailand. Right. So that's it for the day, guys. Okay. So if there are any questions, you can hang around and ask. I'll come to that. If there are any questions, you can hang around and ask. Else, we are done for the day. You may exit the session. Tata, see you soon.